The Lean Startup by Ries. Key insights. Most startup companies fail. This is not something that entrepreneurs like to think about when they are starting a company, but it is something that can't be ignored. In The Lean Startup, Ries gives entrepreneurs a roadmap to better navigate the winding, rocky path that is starting a new business. Whether your company was built in your basement or whether it has hundreds of millions of dollars at its disposal, Ries has come up with a method that can help startups grow into businesses that can really go the distance. A startup can't be run the same way as an established business can, with plans, milestones, and task delegation based on what strategies have performed well in the past. A startup has no past. The key to Ries' lean startup idea is flexibility. The manager of the startup should have a goal in mind, but should be able to quickly adjust and alter his or her original idea if it appears that it isn't working. Perfection isn't what the startup is striving for. Growth is. Ries bases his approach to business on an idea developed by the Toyota company referred to as lean manufacturing. Even if your startup isn't in the field of manufacturing, the same ideas such as learning and experimenting as one goes are universal and can greatly help a new company get off the ground. Finding a business model that works. If you want your startup to really actually get started, you have to first come up with a business model that is sustainable in the long term. The faster you come up with this model, the better chance your business has of earning income. The way to go about creating a sustainable business model is to come up with one single overarching goal for the company. Find a product, service, etc. that people want, need, and would conceivably pay for, and make it your goal to get it into as many people's hands as possible. There is a catch though. Your product must actually be something that people would realistically purchase. You may have a great idea for something like kilt knitting patterns, but can you honestly say that there's a big audience for this? How many people would spend money on this sort of thing? Maybe a few dozen, but not as many as you would need to be successful. To earn revenue, you need to come up with something your target customers want and find out how your company can provide it for them. Every aspect of your company should be centered around this. Validated learning. Okay, so we know that the key to startup success is to find the right product for the right people, and then persuade them to buy it. So how does one go about this? According to the author, the best approach is called validated learning. This process consists of learning as you go and testing out hypotheses about what does and doesn't work, and about which products will and will not bring you success in your target market. It is a scientific approach in that it begins with a theory you can test by speaking to real people to see whether they would be interested in your product or in your marketing technique. The book gives the example of Zappos, the online shoe superstore. Zappos' team's hypothesis was that people would be willing to purchase shoes over the internet. This seemed even more risky at the time. They tested the hypothesis by creating a fake website where people could look at photos of shoes. When people clicked through to try to buy said shoes, the Zappos team knew they were onto something. This trial and potential error approach is the basis of validated learning and can help entrepreneurs to find the path to success. Taking a leap of faith. As much as a scientific approach is necessary for the lean startup technique, there's also an element of faith involved. Entrepreneurs and inventors must truly believe in the potential of the product or service they're trying to send out into the world, and nothing will happen until they take the leap of faith. The best way to take this leap, though, is to do another experiment. First, adopt another hypothesis. This one is referred to by the author as a value hypothesis and states that your particular product will provide your first customers or clients with some sort of value. This group of customers is like a test group, and they can set the tone for your business' entire future. The next step in this more scientifically based leap of faith is to test the growth hypothesis, which says that your product or service will not just appeal to the first few people who buy it, but that it will also find a wider market as time goes on, usually due to word of mouth. The author uses Facebook as an example. Facebook was able to test both its growth and value hypothesis quickly because the product caught on like wildfire. The initial users of Facebook were so drawn in by it that they used it at least once a day, proving that it added value to their lives. And they told all their friends about it, spreading it further, and thus growing the business. Facebook's founders didn't spend any money on marketing at all, but yet they grew a huge audience in no time, proving to investors that their product was worth taking a risk on. Minimal viable products and BML loops. The author posits that too many people develop their ideas in a vacuum. They spend too much time tweaking things on their own with no connection to potential customers, and thus may end up wasting time on a product that won't catch on. Ries says a better way to go about testing your product is to come up with a minimal viable product, or a bare-bones version of what you think the product will turn out to be. It has to be realistic and true to your idea, but it should also be basic enough that you can put it out in very little time and see how your customer base reacts to it before you go all in. You can either put out a prototype, a video explaining how you intend for your finished product to work, or you can even pull a Zappos and create a fake website to see if people take the bait. The goal here is to see if there is enough interest in your product to release it, or if some changes to it, your chosen market or marketing strategy are required. This brings us to the BML loop, which stands for Build, Measure, and Learn. This is the most important part of the strategy for a lean startup. You build a minimal viable product. You measure how well it does by getting feedback from real people out in the real world. And then you take what you learned and modify your strategy so that you can gain more momentum with it. This is the driving force behind Ries' business plan, as it allows you to move quickly and learn on the fly, which is key to getting a startup off the ground. Split testing to find waste. Another necessity for startups is finding out what has value and what is a waste of time, energy, money, etc. The best way to distinguish between what is worthwhile and what can be done away with is split testing. Split testing was first used by mail-order companies to decide which layout they would use for a new catalog. The idea is to create two versions of a product, two different colors, for example, or the old version and the new version, and test both to see which one customers like the most. The mail-order companies did this by sending half of their customers a catalog with a new design, while the other half got a version that kept the old design. They kept track of who got which version and who bought more products to see if the new design led to more sales. Split testing should be done anytime you're considering a change, even to something as banal as the color of your website, as it can provide a great deal of useful feedback for what is working and what isn't. When to preserve and when to pivot. While perseverance is a virtue when it comes to starting a new business, it can also be a hindrance. If something isn't working, you can't just power through and hope it gets better. Sometimes you have to pivot. In this case, pivoting often involves a change to the way the company is run or to the original idea behind the startup. It requires testing new hypotheses and basically redoing all of the earlier steps in this book. Understandably, this sounds like a pain, which is why most entrepreneurs avoid pivoting until it is too late. For this reason, the author suggests holding a company meeting each month to take a look at whether or not you may need to pivot, as in completely change your business model to stay on track. If you catch on to stagnation or mistakes early enough, a pivot can save your company and push it to become more successful than it would have been if you had stuck with your original idea. It can be tough to change your entire business model, but sometimes this is necessary for growth. Growth engines. Speaking of growth, this is the main goal of any startup. It can be best achieved with 3 growth engines Ries defines as sticky engine. The sticky engine focuses on getting existing customers to stick with the company. Marketing is focused on providing value to customers the company already has in order to persuade them to buy more products, continue to use the current ones, or to upgrade to products with new features. This is often done by going above and beyond to provide good service and exciting, helpful features. Viral engine. The viral engine is a way to market without having to do the work yourself. It is a word-of-mouth marketing in which customers spread the word about your product or business to other potential customers without you having to lift a finger. This can be done by making it easy for people to share features of your company, such as when Hotmail added an automatic postscript to all emails sent via their service that advertised free email addresses for anyone who signed up. Paid engine. The last growth engine the author mentions is the paid engine, which simply consists of paid advertising on the internet. This is only really a good idea if you're bringing in enough revenue to justify the costs of the ads, however, so it isn't for everyone. Entrepreneurs can try all three engines at the same time, or they can focus on one at a time so that they can better measure the results. Metrics. When running a business, you must base your strategy on the evaluation of certain metrics or data. Sadly, too many companies refer to what is called vanity metrics to assess their success. These metrics consist of things like the number of shares, likes, or fans on social media, which may look good but don't really translate to more sales. Another example would be the hours that were put into creating or advancing the product and how many goals you have reached. You may have worked 100,000 hours on your product, but that doesn't mean that you're making real progress in growing your business. Vanity metrics make you feel good, but they're not a true representation of how well your business is doing, and they can't help you come up with a business model you can use long term. Instead of focusing on these vanity metrics, you should instead create a set of core metrics by which to measure your progress. These core metrics are specific to your startup and can consist of things like the number of product recommendations generated per X amount of customers, whether or not there has been an increase in customers and purchases, and how much of an increase, and the average time customers or potential customers spend on your website. Another useful tactic is to check out how recent customers compare to older customers. How many times did customers from 2 months ago recommend your product to others? How about from 6 months ago? This is called cohort analysis. Each group of customers or users is a cohort and can be used to see if your company is growing or whether it has gotten stuck and needs to pivot. The main takeaway. A startup cannot be managed the same way as a company that is already established. It can't refer to the past to find success in the future. So the best way to gain customers and revenue is to use a scientific approach. Build and test products as quickly as is feasible. Experiment and learn as you go. Then use what you learn to change course when it is necessary. Flexibility is key, as this is the desire to learn and improve.
Hi, I'm Rhonda, and this is an exclusive audiobook video recorded for the Audiobook Master channel. Enjoy your audiobook and have fun learning. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button so you'll get updated on our next upload. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up and say your thoughts about the book we just covered. Do you want to listen to a summary or review of a book that we haven't covered in the past? Say it in the comments below or send us a message. Don't forget to check our other uploads. Enjoy listening!